Have you ever found a work of art that seems like someone broke into your room while you slept, pick out parts of your brain, and then put the pieces into the final product? For me, that's my roommate as a cat. It's actually quite scary how much the show seems tailor-made for me. If I didn't know better, I'd say someone on staff saw my Cheese Sweet Home video, said the Japanese version of Hold My Beer, and quickly cranked out this wonderfully adorable and heart-wrenching show. Assumably while only consuming energy drinks to get it done in time for the winter season. My Roommate is a Cat is a show that spotlights a reclusive and isolated novelist, Subaru, and his newly adopted cat, Haru, as they grow to care for one another and expand each other's worlds. I'm used to considering myself pretty unique in how structured and quiet I try to keep my life, but after seeing Subaru convey thoughts that I have literally had, it's obvious that there's more people out there like me, which is kinda scary to be honest. There's so much of me in him to the point where I consider him a reflection of my ideal life. Not only being able to work from home while living comfortably with an awesome kidder, but being able to limit my social interactions and spend my time doing things that I enjoy. Of course, there are drawbacks and flaws to such a lifestyle, which I'm glad the show holds Subaru to. He's not the glorified kooky otaku who is this way merely for comedy or to give us weirdos someone to relate to. He's a person who likes things to be just so to the point of selfishness and overall hurting himself. By living almost entirely in books, he doesn't get to experience the perspectives of those around him. All he has is his own imagination and the literature he consumes. Subaru can hardly take care of himself to the point of his editor and his best friend having to check in on him all of the time. So much value is put on his own interests and desires that he doesn't realize he's not considering what others would want, such as the reason why his mom kept pushing for him to go on family trips. For a person who can understand fictional people and effectively create their lives on paper, he has so much to learn about those who help make up his world outside of the bindings of books. Another criticism that is subtly introduced is considering how meaningful Subaru's life really is. With his world being nearly entirely composed of books, he doesn't spend time outside of their covers. Days pass from one book to the next as time drifts by without Subaru engaging with things around him. They formed his world so much so that only now at 23 he's learning his true boundaries for social interaction and how much he actually appreciates not being completely cut off from the physical world. It makes me consider my own life and how I spend my time. Fiction informs my thoughts, emotions, and imagination. It engages with my mind in a way that made me create this channel way back in 2016. Much of my free time is spent living in the realms of made-up yet intriguing characters, even when I'm sharing my favorite works with others. But am I like Subaru and not enjoying my own reality? Is my immersion so deep that I'm letting fulfilling and valuable moments pass in favor of something that I can only experience vicariously? Hard to say. This, but also other criticisms of his life up until this point have all been on my mind while watching, and I find them astonishingly applicable to my own life. It's like how Hook's philosophy on growing up informed my outlook on the subject and taught me to be wary of becoming unable to enjoy life or really care about anyone in a meaningful way. As I work towards a life like Subaru's, I'm reminded to check myself for his shortcomings and work to evade them to the best of my ability. This isn't to say that he doesn't have a lot of those #relatable moments that are less intense though. Of course, scenes of social anxiety are played for laughs, but they don't get away from the honesty behind them. You can imagine being in a situation where you say misunderstand a store clerk and feel ready to disappear once you figure out what they actually meant, or feel utterly lost about how to deal with children, or even attempting to pick out the right cat food. I mean, how can you be certain which one your cat will eat with so many options? You not only fully understand Subaru in these events, but they play out as they would in the real world. It's really hard for me to capture with words, but these comedic scenes feel far more grounded than other slice-of-life comedic-leaning anime tend to be. Subaru is pretty average minus his inability to interact with people and extreme desire for solitude. I can not only see myself completely in him, but then I can picture myself meeting someone exactly like him. Again, he's not just the wacky otaku whose quirks are heightened for entertainment. Yes, enjoyment comes from his social ineptitude, but more importantly from his journey towards opening his world up to others, allowing someone other than books to capture his imagination. I think a good example of a comedic but so true moment is in episode 7 when Subaru is asked to recommend a book, and he panics. On one level, he's never been asked to suggest a book before, so the situation is completely new to him. And on another, how do you not only pick out one of your many favorites, but also somehow put together a quick synopsis that accurately captures why it's your choice? And on top of that, how do you know what would make a good suggestion when the person asking may as well be a stranger and seems to have nothing in common with you? Not to mention, how can you summon up one off the top of your head while considering all of the above at the same time? I have literally been in this exact situation and thought the exact same questions as Subaru. I, like him, have found so many works that I enjoy, but always feel like I fall short of explaining why they're on my gold star list. Especially with things you're passionate about, you want to do them justice and not make it sound like you think it's good for flimsy reasons. Actually, I was experiencing this while writing the script you are now hearing me read. How do I express why this anime moves me so while making sure I'm understood by those who aren't already in love with it? Am I just babbling and ultimately coming off as so good? Is there a way to display my passion that isn't already coming to mind? Really, I think the most unrealistic part of the show is how the kids latch onto Subaru. Maybe he got lucky, but in my experience, children don't gravitate towards the reserve types, especially if the most you can do is stare awkwardly, hoping someone tells you what to do with these tiny humans. And then there's Haru's side of the story. Uniquely with this anime, the first half of the episode is told from Subaru's perspective, and then it gets retold in the second half through Haru's eyes. The two can't communicate, but like with real pet ownership, they come to an interpreted and often inaccurate understanding of one another while forming a strong bond. Imagining what goes on in the minds of household pets is something I enjoyed in G Sweet Home, as it made me question the inner workings of my own cat. And that's what I'm experiencing again as I learn Haru's reasoning behind actions like constantly leaving food at Subaru's door. And like with Chi, the show is also informative on basic pet care tips and needs, especially considering how new the main character is at it. It's made me wonder about my cat's eating habits and the pros and cons of getting her a proper collar. It's so heartwarming and funny to see her actions be misinterpreted by Subaru as she in turn misunderstands her human companion. But even better is watching as the heart of their intentions still reach. Each are constantly enriched by the other's presence as they literally solve each other's problems. Haru forces Subaru to appreciate the connections he can make with others and to face negative consequences of his life. And Subaru provides Haru with a consistent source of food and a secure environment to enjoy her life without worrying about becoming someone else's prey or surviving in a world not built for strays. They force each other to be better and to put more consideration into the lives they lead. And again, I see myself in Haru. As she reflects on her past and how she has learned to never expect safety, I recall my own rocky childhood and am reminded of the security I feel now. How difficult it is to accept things can stay good for an extended period of time and that every day doesn't need to be another trial to overcome. That one doesn't need to eternally be a good soldier and to only ever show strength. Or how dark things can happen, and though you'll be reminded and affected by them, they don't need to inhibit your future happiness. Hell, sometimes they can make you more appreciative of beautiful moments like feeling the warmth of someone dear to you. Or even trying to identify what exactly makes a family, especially when you are separated from your blood relatives. And as someone who has long redefined what familial ties mean to me, it's satisfying to see it reflected in media, especially when the contemplation of the term isn't based on a toxic home life. Haru has no reason to resent or to attempt to distance herself from her siblings as far as we know. Instead, the exploration of what makes a family comes from considering what close non-blood relations mean. It's especially relevant with Haru because she's a pet, and most pet owners consider their furry or otherwise companions family even though they weren't born as such. Just seeing this idea contemplated in this light is refreshing to me. My cat gets on my nerves sometimes, as Haru does to Subaru, but it's never enough to loosen our bond. And like with Haru, even if she doesn't fully understand what her mere presence does to my well-being, Subaru and I are eternally grateful to have known such wonderful kidders. As a pet owner, I can appreciate seeing the experience of living with another sentient creature that you can't talk to displayed with such honesty and regard to reality. Like with Chi Sweet Home, I find this show is deepening my relationship with my own furry pal. But returning to something that I mentioned earlier, the capital point that makes this show dear to me is that it makes me reflect on my life and the decisions I've made. It doesn't just reaffirm my worldview or demonstrate why I'm right for believing what I do, or even make me empathize with moving pictures. More than that, it takes to task the values that I hold and again forces me to consider my own relationships, with my cat and with other people. I compare myself to Subaru and question the gains and losses of his lifestyle up until this point. Am I properly avoiding the shortfalls, or am I rushing towards them without considering their implications? this is what my favorite works of fiction do. They make me question values and ideas that I may not have fully reasoned, or even paint them in new situations that make me reevaluate my position on them. They affect me personally and last as I turn the screen off, or shelve the book, or unplug my headphones. They expand my understanding of people I wouldn't interact with. My Roommate is a Cat is likely not for everyone, though it seems like it. I'm not even sure yet if I'd consider it a 10 out of 10 or an all-time favorite show of mine, as the show has yet to finish airing. But what I can say for certain is how it has affected me thus far. Why I'm consistently excited for each new episode and won't just get around to it as I do with other shows I like. This anime has hit deep with me, and I'd suggest any pet owner to at least give it a try. Don't let chart rankings make you miss out on this narrative diamond. Special thanks to Screw the Cat for reluctantly appearing in this video. I especially wanted her in there because she looks a bit like Haru, considering she's also a tuxedo. And I tried my best to look a little bit like Subaru, albeit I didn't try that hard. If you happen to like something that I said and want to keep hearing me talk, YouTube isn't the place to do it. Instead, follow this Discord invite link. There you'll have access to a content stream of things that I and my friends make. You'll also be able to talk to me in my NotAVampyre crypt, or if you prefer to do such things on Twitter, you can find me at NotAVampyre. Thank you very much for consuming this video, and until next time.